So a lot of people are still talking about Don Callis' appearance at AEW Full Gear this past weekend. Of course, Impact Wrestling's Executive Vice President, Don Callis, appeared Saturday night at AEW's Full Gear pay-per-view event. Callis was a guest on commentary for the number one contenders match between Kenny Omega and Hangman Page, which was awesome, by the way. The match, having Don Callis on commentary, was great. It was absolutely great. For me, Don Callis, he's one of the best color commentators out there right now. And I know that's a big statement, and of course that statement is incredibly subjective. But you know what? I'll say it. I'll go out there, I'll put a limb on it. You know what? I think Don Callis is the best color commentator out there right now. I think he really, really is. His work in New Japan was absolutely sensational. He's done great work as well when he's done commentary in Impact Wrestling. I think there's something about his voice, the ability that he has to get the product over in the ring, to get the story over in the ring. I mentioned this when I was talking about Impact before. That angle at Slammiversary between Rich Swann and Eric Young, I think a huge element of that getting over so big to the point where it eventually became the main event of Bound for Glory was Don Callis on commentary. He sold it. He sold the hell out of it. That is how good Don Callis is on commentary. For me, he's the best. He is the best color commentator out there right now. So obviously Saturday, as I mentioned, he made his first AEW appearance during the Kenny Omega vs. Hangman Page match. And obviously the choice of having Don Callis on commentary and making that appearance for AEW makes a lot of sense, especially when you have Kenny Omega involved. Kenny Omega and Don Callis have a huge history. Obviously, their work in New Japan, but prior to that, going back to Canada, they're both from Winnipeg. Kenny Omega and Don Callis helped Kenny Omega come up in the industry as well. So they have huge history, they're huge friends, and they have a very close relationship. So obviously, it got a lot of people talking about Don Callis being there on Saturday and what was the circumstances of bringing him in. What are the future plans for Don Callis? Well, AEW President Tony Khan, in the post-show media scrum, addressed Don Callis appearing at the pay-per-view, and he was questioned, rightfully so, if Don Callis is going to return to AEW television or programming at some point, or was this just a one-off appearance? And it was very interesting what Tony Khan said. He said, quote, "It was definitely I did for Kenny, and we talked it over with Impact and agreed for Don Callis to come in. He's an executive there. I'd love to have Don back here in the future. I'm open to working with people. I think we've shown it multiple times that AEW is probably the most friendly major company right now. We've got good partnerships with AAA and NWA. Kenny is the AAA Mega Champion. The Lucha Brothers are the AAA Tag Team Champions. And Serena is the NWA Women's Champion. I love working with other companies, and you never know. I'm open to Don coming back. He did a great job on commentary," Tony Khan said. So a little bit non-committal there by Tony Khan, and if there are plans in place, Tony Khan isn't going to come out in the post-show media scrum and go, yeah, plans are in place, he's going to be the manager of Kenny Omega, he's going to be the mouthpiece, all of that kind of stuff. That isn't going to happen. So it's the answer you would expect. But Tony Khan, of course, is open to having Don Callis return to AEW in the future. Now, obviously, Kenny Omega and Don Callis, as I mentioned, they've got history. They go way, way back. Kenny Omega and Don Callis both hail from Winnipeg, in Canada. Don Callis, of course, was a former wrestler in Winnipeg and eventually transitioned into a full-time commentator and manager during his career. And most importantly, he's an executive for Impact Wrestling right now. He's an executive vice president for Impact Wrestling along with Scott D'Amore. And he also does commentary duties as a commentator as well. But as I mentioned, Callis and Omega, they go way back to their days in Winnipeg as both men were trying to come up as wrestlers and solidify their careers in the world of wrestling. And obviously as well, as I mentioned about the relationship previously that Callis and Omega had in Canada, they had a very important relationship in Japan as well. Don Callis was present and made some of the most important and distinct calls during matches for Kenny Omega in Japan, and he actually on Saturday at Full Gear made some of the most important and distinct calls during the match against Hangman Adam Page at Full Gear. He also mentioned on Saturday that Kenny Omega had a tryout with the National Hockey League but chose to become a professional wrestler instead. And he's also, as I mentioned, called some of Kenny Omega's greatest matches in New Japan. He called Kenny Omega's first G1 Climax victory in 2016. He called the 6-star Wrestle Kingdom main event against Okada. And in fact, a little fact here as well, Don Callis called every match between Kenny Omega and Okada in New Japan. So he was he always has been a little bit of a constant in Kenny Omega's career. Those big moments, Don Callis has always been there. Hence, maybe that's why he was there at Full Gear on Saturday. But it could mean a lot of things. And a lot of people have read into his appearance several ways. Because it could mean a lot of things for Don Callis. It could mean a lot of things for Impact Wrestling. It could mean a lot of things for AEW. And it certainly could mean a lot of things for Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega, after losing the AEW World Tag Team Championship to FTR with Hangman Page, they've split up. Obviously, they had their match Saturday, and it looks like Kenny Omega is slowly transitioning into a heel character in AEW. We're getting the cleaner. The heel cleaner character from New Japan coming into AEW with Kenny Omega. That looks like what we're going to get. And it was this cleaner character that made Kenny Omega one of the most successful wrestlers in the world and one of the most sought-after wrestlers in the world as well. And an important thing to remember here as well is not only did Don Callis call the match on Saturday between Kenny Omega and Hangman Page, but Don Callis also left the arena with Kenny Omega at Full Gear too. AEW made a post about that on their social media. So right now there's a lot of question about what is the role of Don Callis going forward in AEW. There's a lot of questioning about, is Don Callis going to become a character for AEW, an on-screen character for a short period? What's the status? And I think if Don Callis does become an on-screen character for AEW, or if there is a desire to make Don Callis an on-screen character in AEW, I think that's very, very difficult to pull off. And the reason I say that is because Don Callis, he's an executive vice president for Impact Wrestling. That is a very senior and high-profile role. That job is very extensive, it's got a lot of responsibility, and it's very, very time-consuming. And Don Callis and Scott D'Amore, both executive vice presidents of Impact Wrestling, they've done an absolutely brilliant job in building and rebuilding Impact Wrestling over the last few years. For me, right now, Impact Wrestling is more relevant than it has been in years. It has more momentum, more buzz than it's had in a long, long time. And that has to be credited to the leadership and the work of Anthem, Ed Nordholm, Scott D'Amore, Don Callis, all of those guys. They have to be credited with that. Now, obviously, in terms of scheduling, if Don Callis was to become an on-screen character in AEW, I mean, it's possible. Impact isn't live on Access TV. It's taped. They tape their content in batches. They'll have normally about 2 bulk TV tapings a month at Skyway Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. They usually last a couple of days. So you're looking at maybe 4, 5, 6 days of tapings per month for Impact on Access TV. Of course, you have to factor in the pay-per-views when they have them, or the specials. Turning Point is this Saturday on Impact Plus. But you also have to look at the other extensive commitments and responsibilities that Don Callis has in Impact Wrestling too. Could Don Callis realistically be able to carve time out of that schedule of Impact to be a regular character for AEW every Wednesday? You know, it's possible, I suppose, one night a week being with Kenny Omega. It certainly is possible, and it's an interesting prospect, no doubt. I think another thing you have to look into there, does Kenny Omega really need a manager? I don't think so. Does Kenny Omega really need a mouthpiece? I don't think so. I don't think Kenny Omega does the most amazing promos. He certainly has a very unique way of talking and speaking. He has a unique cadence to the way he talks as well. But does Omega need a mouthpiece or a manager in Don Callis? I don't think so, but I suppose there is a differential between needing one and having one. Maybe it's a bit like Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman. Roman Reigns doesn't need Paul Heyman, but the package of having Paul Heyman with him certainly helps the whole gimmick overall. Maybe that's the case with Kenny Omega and Don Callis there in AEW. I think, as I mentioned, I think Don Callis is maybe the best color commentator out there. But he's certainly not going to do commentary, I don't think, in AEW. AEW is loaded with commentators right now. They've got a huge broadcast team. You've got JR, Excalibur, Tony Schiavone, Taz, Chris Jericho does commentary too. So I don't think AEW certainly isn't in need for a commentator or anything like that. So they don't need the commentator side of Don Callis, even though it would be a welcome addition. Don Callis, as I mentioned, for me, is the best color commentator out there right now. But there is, of course, potential that he could make infrequent appearances for AEW. He doesn't have to be there every week for TV. He could just show up for pay-per-views or the occasional TV special like Fyter Fest or something like that. and you have to look at what could potentially draw him into AEW, and that being Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega. They're both Winnipeg guys. Don Callis is from Winnipeg as well. They're all very, very close. Don Callis, they say, was really the catalyst to making the Chris Jericho versus Kenny Omega match happen in New Japan. That happened because of Don Callis. He was the one that reached out to Chris Jericho in the first place. So they're all very close. So it's possible, but we'll have to wait and see. I think it would also, if Don Callis does continue appearing for AEW, it would also have to raise the question about a potential relationship between AEW and Impact Wrestling. If the dialogue is open between Impact and AEW at an executive level with Don Callis and Tony Khan, which it certainly looks like because that appearance happened at the weekend, it certainly means that anything could happen there. FTR have been very open and very vocal about wanting to face teams like the North, and that's whether it's in AEW or in Impact Wrestling. They don't mind, they want that match to happen. And in actuality, Chris Jericho has spoken about this as well. Now, how true it is, I don't know, but Jericho has suggested that he was actually really, really close to signing a deal and working a couple of appearances for Impact back in 2018 before this deal with AEW came together. Chris Jericho said, yeah, I'd have worked for Impact. Don Callis is there. And Jericho would have done it. So if Impact could get a deal in place with AEW and maybe do a bit of a talent exchange, that would be a massive, massive deal. And like Tony Khan has said, they're open. They're very open to working with other companies. He mentioned the relationship between AAA and AEW. He mentioned the relationship with the NWA and AEW. Heck, a current AEW wrestler, Serena Deeb, is the current NWA World Women's Champion. And that championship has been a regular fixture on AEW programming, and it looks like that's going to be the case going forward. And we've also seen Thunder Rosa, a wrestler currently under contract with NWA, not AEW, appear regularly on AEW television. She was there at Full Gear on Saturday as well. So like Tony Khan said, anything's possible. Nothing is off the table here. And there's a lot of different ways to look at this. You know, could it have been just a one-time deal? Don Callis is there to support Kenny Omega. It adds an extra layer and flavor to the match. Absolutely, that's possible. Absolutely, that's possible. And maybe we'll never see Don Callis in AEW again. But what I will say about that is we've seen quite a few Don Callis appearances in AEW at this point. We saw him in the video package for the Jericho 30th anniversary. We saw him prior to Full Gear make an appearance on the video package as well. And now he appears in person at Full Gear. You know, it's not a massive step to assume that something is happening there. It's not a massive step at all. Now, maybe he just does a couple of shots for AEW just to help Kenny Omega cement or complete his heel turn in AEW. Don Callis is the one that fully brings out the cleaner in AEW. That's a possibility. Or maybe Don Callis does become a regular character in AEW. Maybe he does become the mouthpiece or a manager or a peripheral figure for Kenny Omega in AEW. And maybe this is the start of an Impact and AEW working relationship. It would certainly benefit Impact. You could bring some talent from AEW into Impact Wrestling, especially those who maybe aren't being featured on TV that often. They want some TV time. Maybe someone like Shawn Spears. When was the last time you saw Shawn Spears on Dynamite? Certainly a possibility, and it would certainly benefit Impact Wrestling to get that rub and to have the Impact Wrestling name be mentioned on TNT. It would benefit them. And how would it benefit AEW? Well, obviously you could bring in people like Don Callis. AEW could also have maybe guys like the North come in, and maybe they could even have some of the Knockouts come in and work some AEW shows. AEW Women's Division needs all the help they can get, but I think again the bigger overarching issue when it comes to the women's division isn't actually the talent, it's the booking of the talent and the commitment to making that women's division work, which just doesn't seem there from AEW in my opinion. So it's certainly very, very interesting there, and look, it could absolutely lead to something bigger. We'll just have to wait and see on that one. I do wonder though what it would look like to the talent in Impact Wrestling if Don Callis does become a regular figure on AEW television, because you have to think of it this way. If you're an Impact Wrestling wrestler and you've just been signed to a long-term exclusive deal with the idea being, yes, you can make indie dates, select indie dates, but you can't work for an AEW, WWE, you can't work for a competitor, you can't work for any other major promotion, and then Next thing you know, you're watching the pay-per-view on Saturday, and then you see your boss, Don Callis, doing shots and making appearances for other major companies. You might be like, well, isn't that a bit of a double standard there? What's going on there? So how come I can't make shots for other companies, but Don Callis is appearing for the other big competitor in a major storyline? That seems a bit strange. So for me, whilst I do want it to happen, I think there's certainly a very fine line there, I think. But we'll have to wait and see if anything comes from it. Of course, Dynamite is tomorrow on TNT, so we'll see if Don Callis makes another appearance for AEW, or it could just be a one-off. It could just be a one-off for a big Kenny Omega match on a pay-per-view. I think, if I was going to be really honest here, and maybe this is just the weary old pro wrestling fan that I am, I think that, yes, it was a big moment and a big match for Kenny Omega, but it did seem a bit random. It did seem a bit random to just have Don Callis coming for that match. You know, if it was a World Championship match in the main event of one of the biggest pay-per-views of the year, I would say, yeah, I can get that. It's a big moment for Kenny Omega. He wants to have his friend there call his match. I could understand that, and I would probably just say, yeah, it's probably a one-off. But it was a tournament final match. It opened the pay-per-view. Full Gear isn't their biggest pay-per-view of the year. It was hardly a huge moment for Kenny Omega. I just felt there's something more to it, I think. I think there could be something more there. But we won't have to wait too long to find out. Of course, tonight it's Impact Wrestling on Access TV. I don't think that will be mentioned on there. I don't think we'll see an update from Impact or Don Callis or anything like that on there. But as I mentioned, of course, AEW Dynamite is tomorrow on TNT. So we'll find out more then, I guess. We'll find out more then, but I wouldn't rule it out. I wouldn't rule it out. But of course, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on Don Callis showing up at AEW Full Gear this past weekend? Do you think he's going to make more appearances for AEW? Do you think this is the beginning of a relationship between AEW and Impact Wrestling? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll be sure to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, chatting about pro wrestling, chatting about AEW, chatting about Impact Wrestling, chatting about WWE. So leave your comments in the comment section below and I'll be sure to reply. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button. Really does help us out here on YouTube, go up the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to WrestleNews365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right hand corner of the screen right now, or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.